Hello and welcome to our next mod tool tutorial video. I'm Dragon and today we're going to talk about generals, spies, advisors and their personal information. So basically all things concerning the characters that you can meet in our game. Let's jump straight into the generals editor here. So what are generals and how do you use them? Generals are characters that can be attached to an army and they provide certain bonuses and special theater actions for your army. They can level up and increase the number of traits they possess. As you can see, the Generals editor is divided into three separate sections: Generals data, Generals skills, and Generals levels. And it looks and works similarly to the Spies editor. Here on the left, you have a drop-down with all your countries. And also the first position here, Generals for events, means that after selecting it, here on this list, you can add new generals that can be used in events. And also you can add starting generals for any country on your list here. By clicking this button here in the middle, Add New General, you create new general character with a random portrait, and you can type his name, his surname, and his skills and levels. All generals have land level and water level, because they can gain their experience points in land battles and in water battles independently. And you can set up different skill trees for land and water progression. Here from this drop-down, you can choose the portrait for your general. And here to the left, underneath the drop-down, we have some common values for the general. First of all, there is the assignment time value, which determines how long does it take for a general to be attached to an army. If you leave it at 0, it will be instantaneous. But if you increase it, for example, to 15, the general will take 15 days before he or she is assigned to an army. And here there is a similar input field, recruit time interval, how often the player can recruit their general. Let's leave it at 60 days. And here you can set up money and action point cost of recruiting new general. You can input a flat value, you can input a scaled value by GDP, and you can decide if you want to take greater value of those two or take lesser value of those two by selecting the sticker. And here underneath cost, we have an input field with number of days, how much time has to pass between each check for general death, because your generals can die from an old age. And here you can set up, clicking this button death curve here, what is the probability of death of your general. Let's increase it, for example, to 25 years in service to 100% of probability. And so now in my mod, after 25 years, the general will surely die. But he or she can also die before that time, with a lower probability. And here we can set up the experience curve of participation in war theater. So for example, we can say that participating in theater gives us 15 experience points. And also that way they can gain experience by losing battles and then become better generals, hopefully turning the lost battles into won battles in the future. And here underneath we have the list of active and passive skills of your generals that can be set up here in the General Skills tab. So let me go to the General Skills tab now and add a passive skill of a general. All skills, passive and active, work similarly. You can select it, you can type its name, for example, charge skill. You can set up its icon. You can set up how often this skill can be activated if it's an active skill. So let's say 25 days. And here you can simply set up some effects for this skill. And after acquiring a passive skill, the general will always have those effects here active. So for example, we can set up an effect for the receiver country here. And you can say that, for example, this general increases passively an army limit if it has the charge skill, passive skill. And it has to be set up as a constant, because if the general dies, the army limit will be reduced to the previous value. And that is how you set up basic passive and active skills. And here in the General's Levels tab, we can set up the progression of our generals for both land or water. So let me select land level path. and add second level for our general. That will be reached by acquiring, let's say, 50 experience points. And here I can set up the icon for my level. In this case, it is going to be level land 1 and level land 2. And I can add some skills. So, for example, in this case, level 1, the first level at which each general starts the game, will be empty. And here I can add, after selecting it, the charge skill. So after reaching level 2, there will be an option to choose from available skills, but in this case we have only one skill, so the player will have to choose the charge skill for our general. And please note that after adding levels, you can only remove the last level added. So you cannot remove any level, you can only remove the last one. And we can set up, in a similar way, the water level path. We will, of course, add our water icons. And that charge skill also. And those are the basics of creating generals. You can, of course, create random generals when setting up starting armies for your countries. If you go here and select one country, for example Snake Empire, and add new army group for them, and select it, this drop-down represents the list of your pre-existing generals for this country, and after clicking this drop-down here, you will create a new random general for this country. But before we can do that, you have to first set up some personal information for your characters, and we'll get to that later in this video. Now let me go to our Spice editor. It works similarly to our Generals editor. It is also divided into 3 tabs: Spice data, Skills data, and Level data. And it also has a list of spies for events and for each country. And you can create new spies here, editing their names, their portraits, etc. But here we have different common values. And the main reason for spies' existence is for them to walk around the map, stand on provinces, and provide you the option to use spy actions. There are 2 types of spy actions: internal and external spy actions. External are performed in foreign countries, and internal are performed within your own borders. That's why spies do not have water and land experience paths. They have offensive and defensive levels. Offensive is external and defensive is internal. So this path here, defensive level, will be acquired through performing actions in your own country, and offensive level will be acquired by performing actions outside, abroad. Spies cannot be attached to an army. They are independent characters with independent models moving around the map with their own speed and their own spawn points. And here in the common values section on the left, you can set up some basic parameters for your spies. First of all, their basic speed and their recruit time interval, so how often you can recruit a new spy. And also money and action point cost, just like in generals, and also their death curve, which determines how often they die. You can also set up here their own unique sound key and choose their model. Skills for spies are created exactly the same like for generals. You can type in their name, you can choose an icon, you can choose the cooldown for active spy skills, and you can set up their effects. The only difference between spy skills and general skills is the list of available effect types. And here in the levels tab, you can set up offensive and defensive level paths for your spies. But also, there are some important parameters to be set up. Contrary to generals, spies use their own resource. They actually use 2 resources: internal security and intelligence points, which are called in our game basically spy points. Internal security is generated when the spy is standing on their own province. Intelligence points are generated abroad, when spy is standing in a foreign country. And this base value here means the starting spy points in a province. So when spy enters a province, he or she will have those number of points to use. And they will increase. Each month using these values here: internal security monthly grow and intelligence monthly grow. So each month our spy will increase his or her base value of spy points by, for example, 15 and 10. And here is the internal security negation value and intelligence negation value. And that means that when spies meet their foreign counterparts in the same province, they will negate their monthly grow by this number here. I recommend keeping it low, because if there will be many spies in one province, then the grow will be slowed down significantly. And we generally want to keep the grow fast enough so that the player can actually use the spy actions. And this is how you set up basic spies values and set up custom spies for events and starting spies for your countries. Another category of characters in the game are advisors. We have two types of advisors: prime advisor and random advisors from departments. So let me explain you how this works. First of all, we can set up how much the player has to pay to search for another advisor, with money or action points, scaled by GDP, or using certain custom curve created in our parameters. And here we can also set up the cost of releasing the advisor from duty. Those two costs are only for our random department advisors, because the prime advisor is selected at the beginning of the game and it cannot be changed later. He or she provides various bonuses for a whole country or provinces for the entire game. And so here is the list of your prime advisors. To create new prime advisor, you can simply click this button here, and our default name will be created. And here you have prime advisor details: his or her avatar that you can choose from our list here, the name of your prime advisor, the description of your prime advisor, and country or province effects that your advisor will provide throughout the whole game. And here underneath we have advisor department management. And first, before adding some advisors, we have to create a department for them. So let's click this button here and add new department. And now we can set the name for our department. Let's make it the Ministry of Defense. And here we can set up the cadency duration in years. Let's say that our Minister of Defense will be in office for 5 years. And here we can set up effects for province and for country that our advisors, our defense ministers, will provide. But here is the tricky part. We can set up here as many effects as we want, but each of our advisors will provide only one of them, randomly chosen from this list here. So we can, for example, add an army limit effect and add army production time effect. And this effect will increase our army limit by 1, and this army production time effect will reduce our army production time by 5. And after saving, when selecting new advisor from Ministry of Defense, the game will randomly choose which one of those two effects this advisor will provide. And here we have the list of our available male and female avatars for our advisors. Those are our available avatars, and those are avatars actually used in this department. So you can differentiate between different departments. For example, I can swap here a couple of guys here. And now Ministry of Defense will be always choosing their avatar from this list here, male or female, from these 8 portraits. And that is how you set up advisors. And remember that those are temporary advisors that you can release, and you can also search for more to randomize effects that they provide from this list. And your prime advisor is permanent for the whole game and selected at the beginning. And our characters, generals, spies and advisors, use the personal info editor right here. The personal info editor is basically a place where you can input names and surnames for your characters. And you can provide global names that will be available for all your characters. And you can also provide personal info based on civilization or based on country. so you can create specific names for civilizations and countries. And here to the right we have the personal info editor, and you can simply add your own file and import it and add it to surnames, female names and male names. And this file should be in TXT format, and it should be a simple list of names or surnames. And of course you can input your own names and surnames here and add them one by one. So let me for example type here John and add to male, Smith and add to surnames. And now when the game needs to create a random character, and it will be a male character, it will take this random name and this random surname to create the name of our character. Let me also add here to the female names Joanne, and let me go to our starting armies editor to show you how to add the random general to your army. After creating this button here, as you can see, the game randomized whether our general will be male or female. The game randomized also based on that the portrait and the name, and also the game randomized the surname. And now this starting army of our Snake Empire will have this John Smith general assigned to it. And that is how you create various characters in our game and provide them with their names and surnames. Thank you for listening and see you next time.